Almost 40 years after the American Revolution, a young nation found itself again at war with the British and now the Native Americans. The War of 1812 is one most have forgotten, but living history reenactors know it well. They gather from around the world and become a unique family, compelled to preserve the past. Converging at sites like Mississinewa in central Indiana, they relive a significant battle and a lost way of life.
Reset! Out!
Mississinewa 1812 draws reenactors from many walks of life, but they have different reasons for taking up the hobby of living history. Military historian Steve Abold from Georgia commands the American troops on the battlefield.
It's a little chilly this morning.
Yeah.
But 20 years ago, I had heard about this particular event via a small videotape that the site was submitting to different historical units. And it so captivated me that I thought, I really need to come up to Indiana and experience this. It's an amazing, amazing place.
Historical filmmaker and reenactor Gary Foreman has directed films for the History Channel, PBS, and the Discovery Channel.
Well, a rifle like this, this is a replica.
I had always been interested in history, but had kind of stayed on the periphery of immersing myself. And then I started photographing on individual assignments the life of reenactors at living history events. And that changed my life. I realized that's where I had to be as well.
Matthew Calder and Shannon Lepage travel to many events together and consider themselves a brother-sister team of American seafaring privateers. Shannon found her way into the reenacting world through a different hobby.
I had quite a passion for dancing, and he picked me up one day and said, "Come on, you're coming with me." And he took me to what's called a cotillion. And this is the period dance.
So we got her makeshift outfit, something would be passable for a period dress, and she got hooked.
We refer to each other as brother and sister, but that's not by blood. It's just because our friendship is that close, there is no other way to really describe it. My kids call him Uncle Matt, his kids call me Aunt Shannon.
And the reason they didn't come with us is because this is their first time to this event, and we were just testing the waters before we bring kids.
Okay, let's go kill some pirates.
Sue Judd from Central Indiana has been participating in living history events for the last 20 years.
That's one of my indigos there. I used to be with the 1st U.S. Light Artillery, my husband and I said, well, you can go off and you can play battle, but I'm going to stay in camp and I'm going to find something to do in camp. That's how I got started spinning. And I wanted to have another creative outlook. So I studied natural dyes and what I could get, and I started experimenting. That was 2 years ago, and I got hooked.
It's one thing to visit this event as a spectator, but it's altogether different to see history as reenactors do.
Sometimes people will come to these things and they will look at you and say, well, it's a costume that you're wearing. It's like, no, you're wearing a uniform, and most importantly, you're wearing the uniform of the United States. Sitting where I am right now, looking down into the valley, where you're watching all the troops drill, you literally watch history come to life.
You can talk to your blue in the face about how a musket works, but until you actually see the musket and see it working, you can appreciate it.
Until you actually put on the clothes and go through a day of it yourself, there is no way to understand the feeling that you get from it. There's no way to understand the shivering because it's 51 degrees at night and you're going, 3 wool blankets doesn't quite cut it. Or the way of wearing wool in the afternoon whenever it's 70 degrees. These are things that they sound inconvenient, but they actually add to the flavor of the event itself.
the early stages of my living history experience, I was more concerned about what I was going to get out of it. And now as I get older and am more experienced with these events, I'm looking for more ways to give back to the public. My priorities have shifted throughout the years from pure immersion, testosterone-laden, battle scenes to now I want to be more of an impresario to people and help them through their quandary with understanding history as we should.
You few proud individuals remain. Our line may have contracted slightly, but the fire which animates each and every one of you, the fire of liberty and patriotism, burns brighter than ever.
People will say, well, why, aside from the fun, why do you come back every year? Very simple. I want to pass this history down to the younger generation. Say, this is your past, and this is a part of you. You are who you are today because what has transpired in the past. So cherish it and learn from it, and most importantly, preserve it.
It's these weekends that give us the bonding time with my children, and they can grow up still knowing me. I got into this hobby with my father. At the time, I was 17. Well, this past few years, it was 3 generations: my dad, myself, and my son.
This is a great way to raise your kids. It helps to teach all of the core values that I feel to be so important, that this era, it was common knowledge, it was common sense. Kids participated in helping with things. Kids showed respect for adults. They actually worked.
And we've got to grab those kids, the kids' minds. There's got to be a mind out there that's interested enough in what we're doing to come and learn what we're doing so they can carry on. The quality of the old way is coming back, and we've got to have it. I don't like living in a plastic world. I like living in a handcrafted world.
We're now focusing on the basic elements of living. Living off the land, doing more things for yourself. And you begin to find out that the key thing of all, when you do this primitive existence, is that throughout time, nothing ever changes. When the sun comes up in the morning, the same sounds will be heard throughout hundreds of years, centuries, millennium. The same smell of the campfire hasn't changed from 200-300 years back.
Once the spectators have gone home and the dust has settled, the true spirit of the reenactors comes alive.
The public is not why most reenactors are here. Most reenactors are here out of the love of the event, and the only way to truly see that is actually after hours. The public does not see the true love that we have for this most of the time. It is whenever we sit around campfires in the evening, and that is whenever we all get our best information is from each other. I have learned so much more about anything to do with history and modern events even, because as we sit there, we are a collective of people from all different walks of life. We have everything from judges down to vagrants.
You get all these people together with all their knowledge, and it's just this big pool of information. And we all appreciate each other, and it becomes a networking system.
This is one of those things that whenever you walk through the gates, you feel home. As soon as we got here on Thursday night, I looked at him, I went, we're home. It's all family. It doesn't matter if you don't know the person, they're still gonna help you out. If your kid starts to run away, they're gonna be like, hey, little guy, come on back. It is a safe environment here. It is a community. The hobby brings us together as a family.
After my husband died, I said, just get out of it totally. But I need the social interaction of people, personally. I need this. My family my living history family will not let me quit. And because he let me retire, I am fulfilling something that he would want me to do.
We speak for people who can no longer speak for themselves. And what we try to do is to do that with honor and respect. Because 200 years from now, how would we want our story told when we are no longer here to speak for ourselves? One of my favorite memories is to sit here right where I'm sitting right now. And at night, when you see that valley alight with campfires and candles, and you hear the laughter, and you hear the music, you smell the campfires, and you watch the silhouettes of the men and women moving down there, it is literally where you step back in time. Just for a second, because you really can't permanently go through that portal. But just for a second, the veil is torn aside, you see it, and it closes again. And you wait for the next moment when you are privileged enough to see the past.